Okay, let's unpack this. Most of us probably remember learning to ride a bike with those noisy, clunky training wheels,
Mhm.
right? Maybe some frustration, definitely a few scraped knees. But today, the sources you've brought us, they show the whole method has kind of changed. This modern first vehicle for a kid looks different. It's got two wheels, sure, but zero pedals. We are diving deep into the balance bike revolution.
Welcome to the deep dive. And yeah, you've given us quite a stack of sources here, everything from like the physics of how bikes work to actual market comparisons. So our mission today is to give you the essential shortcut, full breakdown of why these balance bikes are so effective, the actual steps for teaching your child, and a guide to the models that parents are really rating right now.
And the value proposition seems pretty clear right off the bat. The consensus from your sources is that these aren't just toys, not at all. They're actually key developmental tools. They really zero in on developing coordination, balance, even muscle strength and focus. And ultimately, they promise to make that jump to a pedal bike, well, so much smoother, often skipping training wheels altogether.
Let's jump right into the basics then, the why. So a balance bike is essentially a two-wheeled bike. No pedals, no training wheels. The child just sits on it and pushes off the ground with their feet. It sounds simple, but what's fascinating here is how it simplifies things for the child's brain.
Simplifies, like reducing cognitive load. Is that the idea? Because, yeah, a traditional bike with training wheels, you're asking them to steer, balance, and pedal. That's a lot.
Exactly. It's overwhelming. The balance bike, it isolates the two really tricky parts, steering and actually balancing while moving. And crucially, your sources point out the difference between static balance and dynamic balance. Training wheels teach static balance. The bike stays upright, even when still. A balance bike forces the child to learn dynamic balance. That's the real skill needed for cycling,
Sure.
where movement helps stability.
Right, dynamic balance. And I saw something in the sources about counter steering. That sounds pretty technical for a little kid. Why is that important?
Yeah. That's kind of the secret sauce. Counter steering is how you actually turn any two-wheeled vehicle. To turn right when you're moving, you briefly push the handlebars a tiny bit left. It initiates the lean because balance bikes have that low center of gravity and the child controls the speed totally with their feet. They just intuitively learn this through trial and error. They don't even know they're mastering physics. And that skill, which training wheels just can't teach, is why moving to pedals can be almost instant later on.
Wow, okay, that definitely deepens the understanding. So let's get practical. The big question for parents. When can they start? What's the ideal age?
Well, the general sweet spot identified in the sources is usually between 2 and 6 years old, but there's some nuance here. Some specific designs, really low ones, are considered safe for kids maybe as young as 18 months, possibly even a year old if they're walking confidently already.
But the absolute hard rule is no toddlers under 18 months, right? Regardless of what the box might say, their core motor skills just aren't there yet.
Correct. And you've got to prioritize fit over just age. The number one rule, absolutely critical, is the setup. Check the manufacturer's guidelines, obviously, but adjust that seat so the child can put both feet flat on the ground with just a slight bend in their knees. That contact, that low center of gravity, it gives them security and control.
It sounds almost too perfect. But let's be real, are there any downsides? What drawbacks did the sources mention?
The main one, honestly, is that beginners probably will fall more often at first. It's kind of unavoidable. They're actively learning to balance, which means, losing it and regaining it. Over and over, it's just part of the learning curve. Parents need to expect some minor tumbles.
Okay, but that point about falling more often, doesn't that risk discouraging them? Undermining the confidence boost we're talking about?
That's a fair question. It touches on self-efficacy. Yeah. But what the sources seem to suggest is that because the falls are from low speeds they're pushing themselves, they can stop at their feet. They learn how to fall safely and recover instantly. Compare that to a kid on training wheels. They might fall less often, sure, but when they do crash, it might be faster, more unexpected. That can create real fear. The balance bike way seems to foster resilience, independence, because the child feels in control, even during the wobbles.
Okay, that makes sense. And it leads us straight into the absolute non-negotiable safety. If minor falls are part of the process, what gear is essential?
Safety first, absolutely. A helmet that fits properly is mandatory, full stop. And because of those frequent little tumbles while they're figuring things out, we strongly recommend a child-specific set of protective gear. Knee pads, elbow pads, especially at the beginning, and definitely if they're riding on, say, pavement or rougher ground outside.
Right. Okay, so we've got the bike, the gear, the seats adjusted perfectly. How do we actually teach them? Let's walk through the steps from the materials you looked at.
Yeah, keep it low-key, make it fun. Step one is just introduction. Let the child walk alongside the bike, holding the handlebars, get used to the weight, how steering feels. They need to understand that turning the bars moves the bike before they even sit down.
Makes sense. Okay, so once they're comfortable just walking it.
Step two is sit down and walk. This is where that foot flat position is key. Encourage them to push off the ground, alternating feet, like they're walking, but seated. This builds speed very gradually, very manageably.
And what if they struggle with that bit?
Ah, good point. A troubleshooting tip from the sources.
Yeah.
Make sure the surface is really flat and smooth. Grass can actually be too hard, too much resistance. Asphalt or smooth pavement is usually best. The aim is just building that walking momentum.
Okay, walking momentum achieved. What's step 3?
Step 3 is the big one, the transition. Once they're moving a bit faster than a comfortable walk, you encourage them to lift their feet, just for short glides, little moments. This is when the real balancing skill starts to kick in. You want them to feel that kind of weightless floating sensation.
How do you encourage that? Just tell them, lift your feet.
You can coach them. Say things like, okay, run with your feet. Now lift them up like an airplane. Make it a game. The goal is to make those glides longer over time. Going from constant walking to gliding, that's often the aha moment. It really builds their confidence and coordination.
Gotcha. Run, airplane. And step 4 is basically keep practicing safely.
Exactly. Step 4 is ongoing. Practice on flat, safe ground, away from any traffic. Always with the helmet and pads. It's just repetition until gliding feels natural, second nature.
You know, thinking about it, the beauty here seems to be that they're teaching themselves, aren't they? You're not holding them up.
Precisely. It's about self-discovery. They're incrementally figuring out dynamic control on their own terms. And that kind of learning sticks way better than just being propped up by, well, restrictive training wheels.
Okay, that covers teaching pretty well. Now let's talk about buying one. Your sources had some detailed points on choosing the right bike. Beyond just the price tag, what technical stuff should parents look for if they want a good investment?
Right, we need to look past just the cool colors. The main technical things are the frame material and what kind of tires it has. Lighter is almost always better, particularly for smaller, younger kids. So aluminum or maybe composite frames usually win over steel. They're just easier for a little person to handle, to pick up, to stop. A heavy steel bike can feel unwieldy.
Okay, lighter frame. What about tires? I saw mentions of air-filled ones versus foam ones. Does that really matter for a toddler?
Oh, it absolutely does. And it impacts the cost and how much upkeep is needed too. EVA foam tires, those are the solid ones. They need zero maintenance, they're light, they're cheaper, but they don't offer much shock absorption. They can be a bit bumpy. Pneumatic tires, the air-filled ones, like on a regular bike, they cost more. And yeah, you might get a flat eventually. But they give much better grip and a way smoother ride, especially if you're going over little bumps or grass. So if you plan on using it outdoors a lot, maybe on varied surfaces, those air tires are probably worth it for comfort and better control.
That's really useful detail. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The sources highlighted some specific parent-approved favorites that kind of address these different needs. Let's run through the top contenders.
Yeah, we saw 4 main standouts. First up, often mentioned, is the Strider. People often call this the gold standard. It's one of the most highly rated balance bikes globally. They're known for being super lightweight, usually have those Studio EVA foam tires, very durable, simple design. It's kind of the go-to reliable choice for a lot of families starting out.
Okay, Strider. Then there was the Royal Baby. What's their angle?
Royal Baby often focuses on that future transition. Their key feature, or design philosophy maybe, is making it easy to convert into a proper pedal bike later on. So if you buy a Royal Baby balance bike, you're often buying into a system designed to completely skip needing training wheels down the road.
Makes sense. And the classic Red Wagon brand, Radio Flyer.
Right, you can't ignore the brand loyalty there. Radio Flyer balance bikes tend to focus on smooth assistance, classic looks, sturdy build. For parents who trust that name, know the quality, it often feels like a safe, confident choice for that very first ride.
Okay, reliable, convertible, classic. And finally, the one that sounded like the Swiss Army knife, the Lakoko 6-in-1 multifunctional balance bike. That sounds intriguing.
It really is quite something. The Lakoko is positioned as the ultimate all-in-one because it transforms so much. It can start almost like a little push trike with a parent handle for very young toddlers. Then it becomes a standard trike. Then it converts into the balance bike mode. And the final trick is you can actually attach pedals to that same frame later on. So it covers the whole journey.
Parents seem to love this one because it feels like a really sustainable purchase. It grows with the child from maybe age 1 right through to their first pedal bike, which maximizes the value and means fewer bikes to buy.
So what does this all mean? Looking at everything, the sources really argue that balance bikes are fundamentally just a better way to teach kids to ride. They deliver better motor skills, that spatial awareness, self-confidence, acting as a genuine shortcut to pedaling that, let's face it, modern parents are looking for. By focusing on balance and steering first, it just simplifies and speeds up the whole learning process. Exactly. And if you connect it back to the bigger picture, the real insight here is how this method has kind of shifted our thinking about early childhood physical learning. The fact that kids can direct their own learning, master this complex dynamic skill at their own speed, and then move so easily to pedals, it really does suggest that maybe training wheels were largely an unnecessary crutch all along, a burden even.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we found a way to eliminate the need for a crutch, like training wheels in physical development, what other long-accepted teaching methods, maybe in other areas, are we still using that might actually be holding kids back, slowing them down? It's a provocative thought. Maybe the next time you see a child on a balance bike, really watch for that specific moment they go from that sort of frantic foot pushing to that quiet, smooth glide, that little spark of independent achievement. Maybe that's the real lesson.
Well said. Just keep the setup right, keep the practice fun and safe, and yeah, enjoy watching that independence just blossom. Thanks for bringing us these sources for this deep dive.
Absolutely. Until next time.